Good morning, Anne.
Good morning, James.
And good morning, everybody. We hope that you are having a great weekend or a great week whenever it is that you are listening. So here we are again, Anne.
Yes.
Sunday morning, another podcast episode.
I know, they're going very quickly.
They are going very quickly, I agree. And thank you all for tuning in, for listening. We really appreciate it. So, for the next half an hour,
Yes.
we don't know specifically what we are going to say, discuss. We shall see where it goes.
Okay.
Are you happy to begin, Anne?
I am, yes.
I thought this morning we could maybe start with you sharing some insight, information, reflections from your time as a nurse, from a cadet nurse.
Yes.
And how that came about, your experiences, so on and so forth. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense to me today, yes.
Okay. Are you happy to begin?
I am happy
Brilliant.
to begin.
Okay,
yes.
great. Off we go then.
When I was 11-year-old,
Yes.
I used to go to the local church. My church, actually, the congregational church I was part of.
Yes.
And they used to have a choir. And my friend and I used to run up the stairs where they were singing and open the door and shout and then run down the stairs, and the vicar would chase us down the stairs.
Yes.
And one particular day I slipped as I went down the stairs
Yes.
and looked up and saw a picture of a nurse. And I thought, that's what I'm going to be. Never entered my head before that. And I was 11. I'd just passed my 11 plus. Never thought about it.
Yes.
I just thought, that's what I'm going to be. Now, when I left school at 15, because then you did leave school. And I left school, I was 15 in the March, and I left school at the Easter.
Yes.
Which was early that year. And before that, I had to go into the headmaster's office. As they do now, you go to see the headmaster or whoever it is to have options.
Yes.
Then I only took a leaving certificate at school. There was no such thing as GCSEs. I took a leaving certificate. And I went into his office and he said, "What are you wanting to do?"
Yes.
"When you leave school." And I said, "I'm going to be a nurse." And he laughed. He literally laughed.
Really?
A lot, not just a little laugh, he laughed. And he said, "Never in a million years." And I looked at him and I thought, why is he laughing? What's he laughing for? And he really was laughing. Now, that man could have destroyed me by laughing. And I said to him, "I don't understand why you're laughing." And he said, "Because all the time you've been in school, you've passed your exams, yes, but you've been on my line every night you've been in school."
Is that the naughty line?
Yeah, the naughty line. He said, every night in school you've been on my line. So I said, "Well, what difference does that make? I've passed all my exams."
Yes.
And it mesmerised me, it really did.
Yes.
But on my 16th birthday, I knocked on the door at Altrincham Hospital.
Wow.
And hospitals were closed then. All hospitals were locked. You couldn't go into them only at visiting times. Even if a woman was having a baby, she couldn't have her husband there if it wasn't visiting time. You had to leave the hospital and go home before the baby was born. Completely different times. So I knocked on the door and the girl was a telephonist and she was putting the pegs and didn't know what a telephonist was. And she was putting the pegs in the wall and thought, what's she doing? And then a matron appeared and said, "I believe you've come here to be a cadet nurse." And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Where are your parents?" Now, you couldn't get a job in those days unless your parents were with you or one of your parents. In any interview, a parent had to go with you.
Okay.
That was every job, not just nursing.
Okay.
Because they assessed your family.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Every job. So, and remember apprenticeships even then. If a boy was going to be an apprentice, they had to pay for an apprenticeship. It wasn't free.
Wow.
You paid an indemnation.
Okay.
But you didn't do that with nursing. So she said, "Where's your mother?" So I said, "She's in the hospital." So she said, "Does she work here?" So I said, "No, she's a patient on Lindsell Ward."
Okay.
So she walked me to Lindsell Ward, and my mother didn't think nursing was a good job.
Really?
Yeah. She said, I don't agree, we shouldn't be going nursing. You need to do something else that gives you another career.
Okay.
So, of course, I was determined I was going to do nursing. So she walked me to Lindsellward and my mother was at the end of the ward. And as we were walking towards her, I think my mother was thinking my dad had had an accident or my brother was dead or something. By the time we got there, she had bronchoasthma, she couldn't breathe.
Okay.
And the matron said, this young lady has appeared on my doorstep to be a cadet nurse. And my mother didn't think it was a proper job.
Yes.
So I'm stood thinking, oh, what's she going to say? And my mother said, if she's got the gumption to knock on your door, she deserves the job. And
Right.
the matron said, you start tomorrow.
Wow.
So at 16, I was put onto casualty,
So you
which
were
is now A&E.
thrown into the deep end
Yes.
Wow.
I was on casualty for 2 years
at 16.
at 16. And that's dealing with a child who was brought in when I was on my own,
Yes.
who'd been killed by a taxi. And his mother was with him. Of a train running over a family and the mother and the mother-in-law being killed and the driver not yet dead, but his hands were hanging off. So things like that at 16.
Wow.
That-
So really
Yes.
traumatic, dramatic.
So we had to,
Situations.
I had to learn at a very young age not to show emotion in these circumstances.
Yes.
Because you have to, and I think it might be a lesson in these days for a lot of people, to be honest, you have to step outside yourself. So at a very young age, I learned to step outside myself
Yes.
and view the situation, deal with the situation. But I was on the outside,
Yes.
which would be a good example for quite a few people today.
Yes.
So I was 2 years on casualty.
Okay.
And then I went into what they call the school. And at 18, the school was where everybody went to start their SRN.
Wow. So this is nurse training.
Nurse training, yes.
And was this a school that was in the hospital?
Yes.
Did you live within the hospital?
You had to live in, yes.
In dormitories?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, you had to, and you had very strict rules.
Yes.
You had to be in by a certain time.
Okay.
Not the nurses did go in by a certain time because the nurses on the ground floor used to leave their windows open.
Yeah.
We used to climb in.
You were off to the dance hall.
Yeah, we were off to the dance
The
hall.
Locarno in Sale.
The Locarno in Sale, yeah.
Yeah.
Where we walked across the floor to have a dance.
Yes. All the
So,
boys
yes,
on one side, all the girls on the other side.
Exactly, yes.
Yes.
So that was the start of my Locarno years as well. So yes, so we went into the school. The matron came in. And
Yes.
we obviously knew young girls, 18, who wanted to be nurses. And as the matron walked in, she said, "Is there anybody here who thinks this is a profession? Nursing is a profession." And nobody answered because everybody was always frightened of the matron. And what happened then was, she said, "If anybody does think this is a profession, will you please go and get your coats now and leave? I don't want you in my hospital. Because the day it stops being a vocation, medicine will fail." Which is very interesting.
It is. And do you feel maybe she was right?
I think she was 100% right. But she was 100% right in a lot of things, to be honest,
Okay.
in my nursing. If we broke anything, like a syringe, we had
Yes.
to pay for it.
Out of your wages?
Out of our wages, which was £2 a week.
Wow.
I got £8 a month nursing. That's all I got. So, but if you broke anything, you had to pay for it. And you had to buy your own books out of that. Your
Yes.
own nursing books. So, yes. So, she was a hard taskmaster, but everything had to be perfect in the hospital. Beds, nobody could sit on a bed.
Okay.
Like now, people will go in and sit on the bed.
Yes.
She would go mad. Every patient had to get out of the bed in the morning
Yes.
unless they couldn't sit up and sit on the side of the bed. Nobody was allowed to be on a bed, any patient.
Okay.
And when we said, but look, they're very tired and they don't feel they want to sit up. And she used to say to us, "Do you want to be responsible for them having a thrombosis or not? Because if they don't sit up and they lie in bed all the time, they're likely to get a thrombosis or a bad chest or an infection."
Interesting.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Now in hospitals, every day, they bring round a blood thinner. rather than get people out of bed. I'm not saying it's specifically for that reason, but for the blood clot reason that you're talking about in terms of thrombosis, potential thrombosis. Daily blood thinners are given, injections to the patients, unless you decline it, to avoid this issue.
And that's the difference. But we didn't have the thrombosis because they had to sit up.
Yes.
And then we would go around occasionally and stand them up.
Yes.
And then sit them down again. It was all done very, very gently and carefully.
Yes.
We also, when I went into the school, if we were on nights, it would just be 2 on at night with 15 patients each side on the ward. And we used to have to sit at a table in the ward, and we did our obs, went round doing our obs. But if a patient turned over or looked a little bit distressed, you had to get up and go and stand and hold the hand, and you didn't leave them until they were settled again.
Okay.
So it was a lot of hands-on care.
Yes.
Which I'm told they say there isn't time for it these days, and I'm not in the hospital these days, so I can't say anything about that. But then in the morning, we would then, at 6 o'clock, somebody would go around with a thermometer, put it under their arm on everybody in the ward.
Is this the nurse?
The nurse.
Okay.
One nurse.
One nurse.
By the time she got back to the first one to read the temperature,
Yes.
the other nurse would be there with a cup of tea.
Wow.
Hot tea.
Yes.
To give to the patient, because if you gave them tea before, their temperature would go up.
Okay.
Once we'd done that, and they had the tea, while they were drinking the tea, we brought a full English breakfast round.
Wow.
On proper cups and saucers and plates and everything.
Yes.
Once they'd finished that, the nurse again has to clear it all away. Nobody else, you had auxiliaries came in later, they didn't come in, they weren't in overnight.
Yes.
And then we'd clear all that away, and while one was clearing it away, the other was making hot buttered toast for them to have hot toast afterwards.
Oh, nice.
And that was the same with all meals.
Yes.
They were prepared in the hospital, and they were given with love and care.
Yes. So it was a caring vocation.
It was a caring vocation, but it wasn't big. Hospitals weren't like they are now.
Okay.
They weren't as big. Even Wythenshawe, which is massive, was just Bagley Hospital.
Okay.
And that was a chest hospital. It wasn't a hospital where you went for anything else.
Yes.
And then we had an isolation hospital here in Wythenshawe on the opposite side for people with TB.
Yes.
And they used to be put out on balconies and have to lie out in the sun all day in the beds, and they had TB, for them to get the sunshine.
Yes.
So in a way, life was very much simpler. It was hard work, but there weren't so many drugs around as there are today.
No.
That you're administering. Maybe that takes up a lot of time in hospitals. And now it makes me think, everybody's filling in computers. Everything was handwritten with us.
Yes.
There was no such thing as a computer, so we had to write up all the notes.
Yes.
So that they don't get lost. I've had a lady here today who's in ophthalmics.
Yes.
No, I'm just saying this because she was just saying that she uses computers and used to use notes, and she likes notes better.
Yes.
So nursing is completely different than it used to be. That's in my experience.
Do you feel that Nursing 2000 has had a large impact
I would blame Nursing 2000.
on the way it's gone?
Yes, I would blame Nursing 2000.
Wow, that's strong.
Because
Okay.
that's when it became a profession.
Okay.
There's certain things I feel that you can only learn on the job.
Okay.
So that I'm not saying that's just nursing. That could be an apprenticeship.
Yes.
Of, wiring and an electrician.
I think there is a case to be made. I absolutely agree with the point you're making, that in a sense, every role, every position, every job, you learn on the job.
Yes, I agree.
I do think the point you're making is true. There are certain vocations, certain situations in life that you can't really understand how it is until you're in the midst of it. You're in the actual lived experience of it. The theory becomes live.
Yes.
And when it's life and death situations, theory can only go so far. So I do feel your point stands, but I do think, in a sense, this is applicable to all walks of life.
Yes.
Less theory, more learning in life situation with mentorship, which was these apprenticeships that you're talking about.
Yes. So the apprenticeships today are only done one day in the workplace normally, and the rest in college. So how can you learn on the job only one day and be in college the rest of the week?
You're not going to get the same level of mastery, are you? You're not going to get the same quality of workman, workwoman, if you're spending so little time actually on the job and you're not around the skilled professionals, the skilled craftsmen, the skilled people.
No.
To such an extent, you're detached. You're not one of them.
It's not only that.
You're not coming of age.
Yeah. And the coming of age is the banter as well, isn't it?
Yes.
That has a lot to do with it, because in nursing, there's so much banter in nursing when you're young.
Yes.
And it's sick. The banter in nursing,
Right, okay.
I can assure you, it's sick.
You mean dark humour?
It's a very dark humour.
Right,
very,
okay.
Very, very dark humour.
I won't necessarily suggest we repeat it now.
No, we won't.
Unless you want to.
The thing is, it has to be. It has to be a dark humour, because we wouldn't cope otherwise.
Yes, I would imagine I understand.
You're seeing...
I'm sure everybody listening understands to a degree
you're
anyway.
You're seeing the worst side of life. It's life and death.
Yes.
When you're on a casualty ward. And sometimes you have to use the dark humour to keep you going. So you have to have a reliance on each other as well.
Yes.
As in a personal way. I can't, this will sound mad, I can't bear being sick. I can't bear to watch anybody be sick. And I take up nursing. So if somebody else is
Which is full of guts, gore and everything else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As soon as somebody's sick, I'm being sick with them.
Well, you're not much good then, are you?
I wasn't any good. But your nurses around you learn to recognise it.
Yes.
And they would immediately come in and say, I'll deal with this.
Yes.
So you would have another nurse that couldn't deal with blood.
Yes.
And I would go and do the blood.
And you would deal with that. Okay.
So
I do understand. I'm sure you were an absolute
life,
wonderful
isn't
nurse,
it?
but yes, I understand. Yeah, that is life. Teamwork.
But I've had so much fun, and I can say I've had so much fun, because you have to find humour in situations in life.
I would imagine a lot of people listening can relate to it in their life, about learning the importance, and we've spoken about this before, haven't we? The importance of humour as a way of communication, as a way of stress release, as a way of coping with things, and a way of processing emotions in the moment. And it's very true, isn't it? Sometimes if we don't laugh, we will cry.
Yes.
So laughter, in a sense, is healing in another way in a hospital.
It's like with children, isn't it?
Yes.
You can either... It's like if my child fell, obviously I've got a nursing background, so I would know whether they were hurt or not. But if they fell and had cut themselves and started, and you can see the starting of, I want attention. You know the difference between something really hurt and crying for attention. All mothers know that.
Yes.
So if you know it's for attention, and I would just say spit on it.
Right.
Spit on it and rub it and it'll get better.
Okay.
And they used to just spit on it where they'd been hurt.
Yes.
And then rub it in.
Yes.
But to be honest, that is the best thing you can do with any cut, is spit on it. Because the bacteria in your mouth is the best bacteria that's in your body.
Really?
To heal.
Wow.
Yeah, which is why you have an ulcer. How quick does it heal? It doesn't heal anywhere else in the body that quick.
The tissue in the mouth heals extraordinarily quickly.
It does.
It does. You're right.
So yeah, and yet we're all frightened of the dentist.
Well, yes. I think it's the drill that most people seem to be frightened of. Maybe rightly. I'm not mega keen on the dentist myself.
Yes. So I went from nursing into orthodontics.
So there you go. Just like that.
So
a wonderful
so from-
segue there, Anne, again. Smooth transition.
So one to the other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, both. So I think in today's society, I think we have become a little bit too serious
Yes.
about life itself.
Yes. We've said this before, haven't we, in previous podcast episodes? It seems like, I'm thinking on my feet, that there is a theme that often arises between an urgency for us to awaken and become more aware of what's happening in our world, and if we want to change things, we need to act.
Yes.
And act together and act now before it's too late.
Yeah.
And that's strikingly serious.
Yes.
And feels very impending and can be at times very overwhelming for people, and we all can feel that. And then at the same time, there is a recognition for us to not take ourselves too seriously, and certainly myself, not take myself too seriously, and learn to laugh and lighten up and enjoy the moment. And life doesn't have to be so serious, yet the two are equally true in any given moment, or they are certainly true now on the earth.
Yes.
So
I think to laugh
it's
at
not easy.
oneself,
It's not easy. It
no.
contradicts itself. That's what I'm saying. It's not easy.
Definitely. And I think you can only be taught to laugh at yourself at a very young age. It's very difficult if you get older to laugh at yourself.
Yes.
It starts as a child. If you have parents who, somebody would say that's cruel, wouldn't they? But you have to learn at a young age to be able to laugh at yourself.
Yeah, you do. You do.
You trip up.
Yeah.
You're absolutely sure you're not going to fall.
That's the worst feeling in the world, that. It's not the hurt of the fall. It's feeling foolish.
It is feeling foolish.
It is feeling foolish. And everybody starts laughing. It's like, shut up. Shut up. Don't ask me if I'm all right then. Fine.
But the action of watching them
and the
makes you
men,
laugh.
and as a man, but men are worse than women for it, aren't they? We can be really mardy and sulk. And particularly if something hurts, it hurts a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you've got to be a man and not show it.
Yeah. Oh, it's true. It is true. One thing that you said earlier.
Right.
Well, in lots of ways you've said it, but you did say it specifically, that care has been lost, or is being lost within medicine, within the hospitals. And I would say, to expand it from my point of view, to the whole of life, really. I'm not suggesting everybody listening this morning doesn't care, or any one particular individual doesn't care. I'm not talking about any one person. Generally, it feels like our shared empathy and compassion for each other is waning.
Yes, I agree.
And that it is not for the betterment of humanity. No. And we may not be able to solve any specific issue overnight, but we can change how we feel about it, and we can change how we treat each other.
Yes.
So we can be in certain situations of difficulty, whether that be in a hospital or school, at home, anywhere.
Yes.
And we can't change the literal situation, but we can change how we feel about the situation in that situation. So a change of attitude, and we can open up care. Now, I would also like to share that I am very much aware that there are a lot of nurses still that deeply care about patients, and there are some fantastic doctors who are sincerely and genuinely trying to do their best to help people.
Yes.
And they want to take care of people, and they want to make people better, and they want to help humanity. So hope is not lost. There are some absolutely wonderful teachers who love children, who love their subject, who love education, who love learning, and want to share that passion and that enthusiasm with children of whom they love. There are some wonderful solicitors, there are some wonderful police, staff, there are some wonderful politicians, there are some...
Debatable.
Okay, yeah, debatable. Yeah. My point is that hope is not lost. However, as a general stasis, as a general rule, we are declining. So as we have technologically progressed over the last 100 years, 150 years,
Yes.
as we have economically progressed in certain ways, and as we have materially progressed in terms of the morality, in terms of the lived morality and how we feel and treat each other, in certain ways that's regressing. We're becoming a devolved people in our decency and in our goodness. Again, just to be clear, I'm not saying that you listening this morning, that describes you.
No.
It may do, it may not do. Maybe it describes us all if we are open to question everything. But I do feel generally, we are not as considerate as life used to be. We're not as kind as life used to be. And on the other side, we're not as stoic, we're not as strong. We don't seem to have a sense of purpose, a sense of mission maybe. And maybe that's for another time. You, at 11 years old, saw a picture of a nurse and knew that you wanted to be a nurse. At 16, you went to the door of Altrincham Hospital and you dum, dum, dum.
Yes.
And the matron comes out. And in my mind, I'm painting it that Miss TRUNCHBULL opened the door.
I'll tell you who it was.
Yes, girl, where is your mother? And she marches you up with her hammer. Hammer being the Olympic hammer, the one that they swing round. If you haven't seen Matilda, you'll understand the reference if you do. And she marches you to the ward. But you had a sense of purpose, a sense of mission.
Yes.
You were here to be a nurse at that time. That was what you were going to do to begin your journey on life, to begin your life path. You knew. And there was a sense of purpose, a sense of mission, a sense of meaning, and a sense of humanity, a humanitarian feel. And that was celebrated, although it was challenged. Your mother challenged you to see if you really wanted it.
Yes, she did.
The matron challenged you to see if you really wanted it. And when you showed that you wanted it, when you showed that it was who you were, and you were prepared to stand up in the face of ridicule against your headmaster, against your mother doubting you and saying, not you in terms of your credentials, but doubting whether it was really for you, against the matron saying, where are your parents? So you weren't given any enthusiasm, or at least very little enthusiasm to begin with, but you carried it through and it drove you through.
Yes.
That's important. Now, not everybody knows specifically when they are young or at any age what specific job role they would like to be involved in, but everybody can feel what they're passionate about and how they care and how they would like to feel that and action that care in the world, whether it's in sport or music or theatre or dance or cars, tractors, shoes, food, medicine,
I think more do
law.
than people than we think. I think more children know exactly what they want to be.
Yes.
But it's taken out of them.
Yes. But if it's driven by an economic goal, people can move off their passion. If it's driven by a humanitarian, a sense of purpose. I'm sounding like Keir Starmer, aren't I? Talking about missions and purpose. Hopefully not. I hope not.
I hope not.
So I mean it in terms of something deep, something soulful, something meaningful, something faithful and thoughtful and powerful, something human.
Wouldn't it be awful if we all had that? I mean, good, not awful. Wouldn't it be
Well, that
wonderful?
was a Freudian slip, wasn't it,
It was
Anne?
a Freudian slip. Wouldn't it be wonderful if everybody had that in the jobs?
Yes. And I feel that everybody does have that,
Yes.
at least a spark of that in you. And it doesn't matter what age you are or where you are in life.
No.
You can still rekindle and feel that feeling. So I find your story inspiring, Anne. I find it truly inspiring. And thank you for sharing it. And I'm sure everybody listening has found it inspiring and moving and powerful. It makes it real. It links us, the past and the present. It links us to what feels important. We'll all describe it differently, but it feels important and we can feel it. It feels meaningful.
But we can't have a future, can we, without history?
No.
So
For another time. So
Another time, yes.
I think we'll have to leave it there, Anne. So
Well done.
have a lovely weekend, everybody, and we look forward to being with you, speaking with you next week. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.